Hello and welcome, rivals and gamers everywhere. This is Game Rivals. Back to you again every other week with the latest and greatest in gaming news. I am your host, Maximilian X, and I'm here today with you after a good cocoon period with Tears of the Kingdom and Street Fighter 6 beta and more gaming news than you can shake a gaming news feather at. I don't know what that means, and honestly, I don't care. It sounds funny, and I'm gonna keep it in. I am Maximilian X, as I just said, and if I didn't, I'm saying it now. I have a lot to talk about with all of you beautiful people out there. First of all, thank you as always for listening to Game Rivals. I hope you spread the good word of Game Rivals and share it wherever you can. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcasting app, but also on YouTube. There's a lot of gaming news that I want to talk about, and there's also some more stuff that I also want to talk in what I've been playing. So let's get into the news because there is a lot to cover. So, if you have not been living under a gaming rock, there has been a lot going on. Particularly when I say there's a lot been going on, I mean there have been a lot of announcements as we get closer to the summer of games. A lot of games have been releasing, and a lot of gaming news has been coming out. Some good, a lot of bad, and a lot of in the middle, depending on who you ask. But if you ask me, it's been a lot. I'm trying to cover as much as I possibly can. Yeah, I'm just one man. I'm just one gamer up in here. So let's not dilly dally any longer and let's just get straight into the news. So the first thing that I want to cover in terms of news um, is, of course, I have to. I'm gonna start off with it from the top because there's a lot I want to talk about later in what I've been playing, and that is, of course, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom's release. And let me say this: I have been avoiding as much preview reviews going into this game as much as possible. The last piece of media that I consumed before the game released was that final trailer that they dropped a month earlier, and I just played that verbatim for like almost nonstop. It has been essentially my playlist of like for like an entire month before the game came out. Um, and luckily for me, I was able to pick up the collector's edition. And yeah, that was really good. I put up a kind of a vlog and unboxing video of that on my YouTube channel. So if you want to check it out, that is youtube.com at Maximilian underscore X. You can find my unboxing video there. But basically, I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom since it came out, and that has been over a week now. And I have to say, it is good. That's all I want to say for now, but I'll get into it. But I'm not the only one that thinks that. It has been getting so many praises and accolades from reviewer boards and whatnot. It is the highest rated game on Open Critic, uh, quite possibly ever. It currently uh, sits at a 97 mighty. It also is at 100% recommended by the critics, which is amazing. I think the last game that actually did that was, well, actually, was there a game that actually did that? I don't think so. Um, if you look at the popular games, it is still sitting there. Um, when it came out, it was at 100%, 100% critics recommend. It's still a 97. Currently sitting at a 98% critics recommend. That's still a very strong rating. I still believe that that is the best rating on Open Critic. Let me make sure of that as well, because things have changed in the past couple of weeks, of course. Um, it has slightly dipped underneath Mario Odyssey again. Mario Odyssey again at number one. I don't know which reviewer was that decided, hey, I'm gonna give it not a recommend, but that doesn't matter. It's still like the highest, one of the highest rated games on OpenCritic and on any aggregate as of right now. A lot of people love this game, including yours truly. A lot of people, of course, have some criticisms which, depending on who you ask, is either warranted or not warranted. And I feel like, I mean, some criticisms make sense. I mean, it's still using the same engine, but wow, have they really pulled out all the stops? Um, and yeah, like some of the reviews are just glowing with positivity for Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of people that have been enjoying it have been doing weird stuff. One of the things that a lot of people have been doing is commit commit crimes. Let me rephrase it because that makes it sound really bad. They've been committing crimes in Tears of the Kingdom. Sorry, I keep making that mistake. In Tears of the Kingdom, not in real life. But if this was real life, if Tears of the Kingdom was real life, a lot of people would be going to jail, primarily for torturing Koroks. Yes, the Koroks are back, just like in Breath of the Wild. You have to collect them all to get that that special completion bonus at the end. But this time, you actually get to move some of them because it's part of their mission structure. So, what used to be is that if you were in Breath of the Wild, you'd find these things that you'd have to do, or like simply lifting a rock, and underneath it, there'll be a little Korok that gives you like their little Korok seeds, which is basically poop, but it's a seed, and they poop out seeds, and they give it to you as a reward. Now, in Tears of the Kingdom, they still do that, but now they added a different wrinkle to this. You have these backpacking Koroks who pack way too much in their backpack and can't move, and they're tired, but they want to get to their friend, and it's up to Link to get them to their friend. So that means you can move these Koroks, unlike the other Koroks that you can only find and slightly torture by dropping rocks on their heads. These you can actually move, you can move them around, you can attach them to stuff with your Ultra Hand ability, and people have been doing some pretty heinous stuff with the Koroks. I'm not going to repeat what those things are, but yeah, I mean, if you go to TikTok or YouTube and you just type in Tears of the Kingdom, Koroks, I think that should give you a good idea if you haven't figured it out already. Outside of torturing Koroks, people have been making amazing stuff, but as always, when you give people tools of creativity, the first things they make there are, jeez Louise, a part of the male anatomy, and I'll just leave it at that. But they do tend to make some really cool stuff that would still land them in pretty much like on the on the like most wanted list for Interpol because they be making weapons of mass destruction, even if it is in the name of destroying all the baddies. It basically ends up being the meme of are we the baddies? Because yeah, people be making like fantastic mechs, fortresses of doom, and basically anything in between. The people also tend to make some more wholesome stuff. Like recently, I saw that someone made the pod racer from Star Wars Episode One. Uh, I've seen various iterations of that. That's very nice. That's very cool. But then you also see like this essentially car wash of doom where someone attaches a bunch of lasers to like this box where they've trapped a bunch of bokoblins and moblins, and it's just going around and firing the lasers at all of them at the same time, slowly murdering them with lasery accuracy. Um, and all of that in between, of course. And of course, there are people out there like me that just want to explore and enjoy the game, which I have been doing. Um, I haven't made any mass destructive Doom bots, although someday I will amass a army of mechs in Tears of the Kingdom. I just have to figure out how. The beautiful thing about it is not just that, is that within the first weekend of Tears of the Kingdom being available, Nintendo also posted a tweet after that they have already sold 10 million copies of Tears of the Kingdom, which is ridiculous. 10 million copies. That's a lot. I mean, for comparison, it took I want to say it took Elden Ring like 5 months to reach 13 million, something like that. Um, and the fact that yeah, Tears of the Kingdom only took them a weekend to do so is amazing and great, and probably beats all of their expectations out of the water at over at Nintendo. And yeah, they've been of course doing the rounds and been giving some interviews. And one of the latest interviews came out uh, by way of the Washington Post that interviewed series producer Eiji Aonuma. And one of the things that he brought up during that interview was that uh, when they originally delayed the game last year, and I want to say it was like March or something, that they were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we're going to be delaying it for another year because we're not quite done yet." The game was factually feature complete, and they spent the rest of the year essentially making sure that the game was as bug free as possible and that the game would not break under whatever kind of pressure gamers would give it. Now, granted, if you've played the game and you use like stuff like the Ultra Hand, you may see stuff like the frame rate dipping, but that's kind of the extent of it. This game is, I won't say bug free because there are some exploitable bugs in there, um, including a duplication bug, but in terms of like playability, like being able to play the game without it like having any kind of hiccups, any kind of like game breaking bugs, crashes, it's amazing. It's amazing. This game is so big, and yet you can travel from point A to point B without a nary a loading screen outside of fast travel. And that is awesome. The fact that Nintendo was able to take their time to make sure that the game's stability was guaranteed, I feel like Nintendo is one of the few companies that actually not only can do that, but will take that time to do that. They'll assess their current situation and know that they need to have the best as they can possibly produce. I wish more developers and more specifically, more publishers were capable of doing this. I'm not saying that the other developers and publishers aren't capable of doing this. I am saying that a lot of these publishers, and I'm really specifying publishers here, that either refuse to do it or will find specific excuses to not delay a game for longer than a few months. There are some exceptions out there, of course, for certain games that will get delayed for the greater good. And then there are some that'll delay it, but it doesn't really matter because they're not at a point where even a small delay can resolve the issue. A bigger delay is needed, but they do not get said delay. And that is unfortunate because if you look at the state of gaming today, especially when it comes to PC gaming, a lot of games that have been coming out recently on PC have been so egregiously bad that it's kind of embarrassing that they're asking $70 for it. And when people were shocked that Nintendo was asking $70 for Tears of the Kingdom, people were shocked, people were outraged. But quite honestly, at this point, as like slowdowns aside and it not running in 30 frames per second, blah, 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 yada, 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 the game is very stable. That is something that you cannot deny from this game. And that is very great. Um, I hope that this game keeps doing as well as it has been doing so far. I hope it continues to do well because Nintendo kind of needs it. Because the last game that they're going to be releasing this year from themselves, as far as we know, is Pikmin 4, which is coming out next month, I want to say. And yeah, outside of that, we have no idea what Nintendo's putting out, big or small. So that's interesting. A little bit worrisome. Um, well, I guess we'll see with time. You know what else we'll see with time? Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 16 is coming out in like what 2 weeks? Less than 2 weeks as of this recording. And yeah, the final previews are out and they seem to be good. They seem to be really good. Been hearing some really cool stuff about it. It is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. So if you have a PlayStation 5, good on you. You're getting probably one of the best RPGs of the year out there. So have a nice one with that. Yeah, a lot of yeah, a lot of a lot of them are praising the game for the looks, for the more mature storytelling, and also praising it as a return to form for the Final Fantasy series. Since this really does feel like something that takes place in a fantastical world of swords and magic. The fact that the fact that the main character wields like the classic summons is pretty cool. It is a departure for the Final Fantasy franchise in terms of the mainline franchise, even more so than Final Fantasy 15 was with its system, or Final Fantasy 7 remake was with its battle system. This is a complete action based RPG with an attack button, with like a magic button, special attacks that you can perform, combos that you can perform. It's all action orientated. A lot of people, including myself, was a little bit skeptical about this, but they got the right people to work on this. The combat, I want to say the combat director is someone who has worked on the Devil May Cry series in the past. They hired him from Capcom, and yeah, it really shows. It really shows in like the gameplay. I would 100% recommend checking out any previews if you haven't already. And if you're still kind of on the fence about Final Fantasy 16, I would recommend checking out all the previews that are out there. There are some really good previews that talk about the game and the battle system, and the story progression, how it works, what their opinion is on it. It feels very mature, like I said before, in terms of like the story progression and the character, the character motivations, and just how the overall plot is being presented to the player. Some outlets basically comparing it a bit to like Game of Thrones that you see mostly thrown around there. And you know what? If you even if you just looking at like story trailers and stuff like that, even if you look at that alone, you get that feeling that it is trying to go for something a bit more mature in that sense, um, a bit more a bit more grounded in terms of like the characters, and that's really cool. I kind of I would really love to play this. Unfortunately, I do not own a PlayStation 5, so I'll have to I'll have to figure out a way to get around that because it is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. I don't know at this point. It probably is a timed exclusive, hopefully, but yeah, having to wait a year or so for it to go multi-platform is not what I would call ideal, but I'll figure something out. Don't worry about that. But for those that do have a PlayStation 5, it seems that Final Fantasy 16 will be 100% recommend. If you're an action adventure fan, if you're an RPG fan, um, I'd say give this one a look. So, with more of that coming on, of course, um, a bunch of stuff also got announced. Uh, we are getting. Actually, no, let me preface this other way. Sorry, that was a horrible segue. I apologize. But yeah, this might actually be the year of the fighting game. Outside of Street Fighter 6 coming out in less than also 2 weeks. Okay, a lot of games coming out in 2 weeks. They recently had an open beta weekend. I also played that. I also played a bit of that as well. And let me tell you, Final Fantasy is on my mind. Street Fighter 6 is might actually be the Street Fighter to get. Whether you're a casual player or pro, uh, this game seems to have everything for everyone. It has a interesting, unique take on a single player in the world tour. The multiplayer battle hub seems pretty together. Partook in some tournaments, did not win. um, Despite everything, you might think I am what you would call a casual fighting game fan. I have never been good at fighting games, no matter how much I smack talk. And I do smack talk, but that's part of the game. That's part of the charm. That is part of the whole fighting game community thing. And yeah, I mean, smack talk is a part of it. So you'll always smack talk, no matter how good or bad you actually are. Just make sure you do not smack talk against someone who actually plays it for a living and get your ass cheeks clapped. Because yeah, you'll never hear the end of it then. um, but yeah, the Street Fighter 6 looking really good. They have, of course, their new gameplay system. You could play, still classic if you want to, but then they have, of course, the modern control system, which makes it a lot more simpler to output to play the game, but at the same time, also makes it more viable for even someone who is a little less dexterous to play the game as intended. And that is really cool. I've been playing modern controls for a while now, including when the demo came out. And quite frankly, it has been a blast to relearn Street Fighter in a way that I did not expect to be as intuitive, but it is. So kudos to Capcom for that. Um, I hope that people will check out Street Fighter 6 when it does come out. If they've been curious about Street Fighter or and have been nervous because they're nervous about fighting people that are, like that, that are better, um, I think this will be a good one for you to enter with. Like, don't worry about it. Pick your modern control scheme. Um, there is a rank mode, so that'll make sure that you're always fighting against people of similar level, so don't have to worry about that. Capcom has said that playing with the modern control system is a viable thing, and honestly, I've been experiencing it for the past couple of weeks, and experiencing it there over the weekend, playing against real people. I will say that it does hold true if you want to put in the effort to learn how to play Street Fighter 6 with the modern control schemes and fight against people that play it with the classic control scheme. I think it should be okay. I think you should be okay. I don't think you should have to worry about it. Um, so that's great news in terms of like fighting. But like I said, this is gonna be the year of fighting. Outside of Street Fighter 6, of course, we're getting a new Tekken 8. Should be arriving sometime this year. Um, but that is not all, people, because for the longest time it has been rumored. It has been kind of sort of leaked by Warner Brothers Discovery, because they do not understand how the gaming industry works and how like announcing stuff before they're ready to be announced works for some weird and stupid reason. But we are getting a new Mortal Kombat called Mortal Kombat 1. They've been hinting for this for quite some time, and they finally dropped the trailer over the weekend. It seems a little bit suspicious, but okay. And yeah, it looks interesting. They only showed us a CG trailer, of course, so I'm not gonna give my opinion on it. There are more details on the official website, of course. They're adding a new mechanic called the cameo system. Cameo, of course, spelled with a K because Mortal Kombat. Um, and yeah, so the cameo system kind of reminds me a little bit of Marvel versus Capcom, kind of like with the assist characters, or Smash Brothers like assist trophy kind of thing, where you can like connect characters to your fighter that'll assist you during battle as a cameo appearance. So they are non-playable characters that'll assist, which seems very interesting. It looks. I mean, in terms of looks, it looks like Mortal Kombat. It sounds like Mortal Kombat. Um, it is Mortal Kombat. There's so much. There's so much Mortal Kombat. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's everybody's been hype about it, and unfortunately, that hype has also led to a little bit of leaks here and there. For example, the DLC characters have been leaked. Thank you, Amazon, for that one. And yeah, so a bunch of characters were leaked. I'm trying to find that the article for that one particular. And for some reason, I can't find the gosh darn article. There we go. Yeah. So basically, the DLC characters that were leaked were Quan Chi, Omni Man, Ermac, which we do know, Takeda, Peacemaker, and Homelander. Omni Man is from Invincible, I want to say, and Peacemaker, of course, is from I want to say the Suicide Squad, and Homelander is from The Boys. Eh, Very interesting DLC characters. I mean, it's not something they haven't done before. I mean, they added like Jason and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before to like I want to say MK11. And of course, they have had their share of like the DC versus Mortal Kombat, of course. Um, so it's not like they haven't had superheroes face off against the Mortal Kombat characters. It's interesting that they would be added as DLC, and these are actual playable characters, not cameo characters. So just to make sure of that. Mortal Kombat is set to come out this September, September 19th, on all available systems, including the Switch, which is interesting. Um, they are being handled by, of course, different studios, so that makes sense. I think the studio that was responsible for Mortal Kombat 11 on Switch is also doing more the ports for Mortal Kombat 1. So, and it's a simultaneous release, so that's a good news, which is something that you don't see every day for like multiplats that include the Switch. So here's hoping that the Switch port will actually be good, and here's hoping that the game itself will actually also be very good. I was never a Mortal Kombat kid. Yeah, kid. Let's go with kid. I was never a Mortal Kombat kid. I was a Street Fighter kid. I did play, of course, Mortal Kombat back in the day. The last time I played a wow, I don't even remember the last. I think the last time I played a Mortal Kombat game was Mortal Kombat 10. For a little bit, and yeah, it was fine. Like of course, the control schemes are way different compared to something like say a Street Fighter. A lot of people prefer the Mortal Kombat style of fighting game because it's a lot more easier to control. Um, that's their opinion. I have no opinion on that because I don't really play Mortal Kombat. But it is really cool to see. It is a franchise that has been around for a really long time, like Street Fighter. So it's always nice to see when they're trying to do something different. And this looks like it might actually be something different. Some more details have come out about Mortal Kombat 1. And it has to do with uh, the requirements for PC. And so you would figure, right? It's a fighting game. It'll probably, like, at most, it's like maybe 40 gigs, right? I mean, it's just fighters. You have your stages. Um, it's probably not even going to be that big, right? It probably maybe like even at a crazy size, it would be maybe 50 gigabytes. No, if you're gonna be playing this on PC, you're gonna need 100 gigs of storage, and that is for the minimum system requirements. I mean, it's still 100 for the recommended system requirements, but that is yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, a lot for a fighting game. I don't know why, which made it a little bit worrying for people. But apparently, on Switch, it's going to be 31.3 gigabytes. I don't know how they shrank 100 gigabytes to 31, but that is a magic trick that I would like to see them pull off. So, yeah, the fact that we already know this kind of stuff probably means that the game is pretty much close to like being done, and they're probably just polishing it up until the release, which is good. Which means that we're probably going to see a lot of more stuff heading into the summer of games. Probably a lot more, the probably gameplay being shown very soon. Maybe even during the PlayStation showcase that was announced to come out on the same day as the episode that this episode goes live. So, oh, that actually is a very good segue into the PlayStation showcase that is going live the same day as this episode. So I do not have any information from that PlayStation showcase. There are a lot of rumors going around. One of the rumors is that there is a Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake coming out for PlayStation 5, maybe multi platform, we're not sure, but that it will be announced at least at the PlayStation Showcase. That they'll be showing off a bunch of games that we don't know yet, and of course that they'll be mainlining Spider-Man 2 because that game is also supposed to come out very soon, sometime this year. They haven't talked a lot about it since, and of course we had that rumored release month by the voice actor who does Venom in the game, that it's coming out in October, I want to say. And yeah, so we'll finally get some more details. One of the details that we did recently find out is that the game is still a single player experience, despite the fact that there are two characters that you're most likely going to be playing as, with Miles Morales as Spider Man as well as Peter Parker as Spider Man. This is a little bit disappointing for those that were hoping to play co op. Co op web slinging would have been pretty cool, but if they chose not to do that, then that's their decision to do. There are probably reasons why they couldn't make it co-op, or maybe the fact that it wasn't in their planning to begin with to have it be co-op. Um, some would say wishful thinking, and I think in that regard, it probably was wishful thinking for people to hope that that would be the case. And that's fine. Everybody always has wishful thinking. I was hoping that I hope at the very least we're going to see some very interesting games, because it has been almost 3 years since the PlayStation 5 launched. And to be fair, we've had some stellar games. We just haven't had a lot of them. It also didn't help that the system was very hard to get in the beginning. You can get it now, but yeah, in terms of like um, cost, unfortunately, in most regions, the price went up for it, which is a little bit disappointing. So it makes people like double think whether or not they should pick up a PlayStation 5 or not. And then of course there are those that picked up the PlayStation VR 2, who are like, so like, are there any other games coming out? Like, seriously? And like, even for someone who's not into all that VR stuff, I'm kind of curious, because Sony has not really talked up the PlayStation VR 2 since it launched. Like, they made a whole big push right before launch, and when it launched, we haven't heard hide nor hair from it. Now, maybe, just maybe, they're saving it for this presentation, and they have said that they are going to be showing off PlayStation VR titles, so that's good. I don't know how much it's going to be, considering that the presentation is going to be about an hour. And it is technically a part of Summer Game Fest. So technically, you could say that this presentation kicks off Summer Game Fest, even though the Summer Game Fest presentation proper doesn't takes place in about 2 weeks or so. Um, but yeah, there's that going on. Um, what are my speculations? The I don't know. I still have my doubts when it comes to the MGS stuff, but considering that the rumors have been so strong, at this point I feel like it's kind of unavoidable that it is not going to be it's not going to be something that's um big, right? I have to believe that it is something big and that it might actually hold some truth to it. Other than that, I honestly can't tell you what we might expect. I'm hoping that we see more interesting games coming from Sony since they've acquired like Haven Studios and Firebrand. I forgot. That like recently purchased another studio a while ago. I do not remember. It's Sapphire or something. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see um, when that gets announced and when all those other things get announced. But it looks, I'm looking forward to it. It's supposed to be pretty awesome. Um, I mean, for an hour, I hope they are really bringing the noise because they kind of need it. That last state of play was not what I would call spectacular, but who knows? This showcase might change people's minds. Um, you know what else might change people's minds? Take Two actually making some money. Well, actually, they've been making a lot of money, but Take Two actually putting out games because I think the last thing that they put out, well, actually, what is the last thing they actually put out recently? I think it was the Lego game, the Lego driving game, and that apparently seems to be doing well too. But when we talk about that, we also, of course, we're referring to games that Take Two make themselves, not just publish. Um, and of course, the rumors of well, the rumors uh, of GTA 6 coming out sometime in the future. Um, in a recent investor meeting, they were talking about how in the years of 2024, 2025, they'll be bringing out some groundbreaking games, plural, that'll make them a bajillion money. That'll make them a lot of money. Uh, and of course, people are thinking, oh, one of them has to be GTA 6. But since they are mentioning multiple titles, they don't know what it could be. One of the rumors is that it's the new Bioshock that has been in the works, Bioshock 4, that has been in the works for quite some time now. We know that it's in the works, but we haven't seen hide nor hair from it. And it's been quite a couple of years. So who knows? Maybe we'll see that at the PlayStation Showcase as well. Maybe we'll see it at the Xbox Showcase. Who knows where we'll see it? The point is that Take Two is betting it all on fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26 on these groundbreaking games that'll make the company $8 billion. At least that's the target that they're setting for themselves. And of course, that's the kind of stuff that investors would like to see. So maybe part of it is just to make sure that investors are happy and know that they're coming out with stuff because at this point we haven't seen anything made by Take Two, just published by Take Two. Um, so we'll see what happens from that point on. Um, so I wish them all the luck in the world. Um, it would be nice to see what it ends up being. Less to say that it does sound very interesting. Another interesting thing that is also happening in the game industry these days is yeah, so apparently Steam is dabbling with game trials. To be more specifically, 90-minute game trials for games. And one of the first games to take advantage of this is the new Dead Space remake from EA. This is not something that they announced really big, made a big announcement about it. They just apparently like quietly put it out there as a trial. Unfortunately, I can't really try it out because I do not have a PC to try it out on, and as far as I can tell, it's not supported on GeForce Now. So yeah, you'll just have to take my word for it. If you have a PC, you can check it out on there on your Steam and see if it is indeed on there and try it out and see how it is. So yeah, if you were curious about Dead Space, the Dead Space remake, you can try it for 90 minutes. And apparently there are more games that will have this game trial option. So just keep an eye out on the Steam page and on the game pages that you frequent, and maybe you'll see more of those 90-minute trials pop up. Who knows? Um, Speaking of who knows, apparently the voice actor for Alan Wake says that Alan Wake 2 is supposed to come out in October. He was recently interviewed uh, in Monsters, Madness, and Magic. I think that's a podcast. Gosh darn it, this is very annoying. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was like a podcast thing. Um, I did not know that that was a thing. So yeah, they tried to really get some more information out of the voice actor Matthew Portera, and apparently they did it. They got it out of him, or at least they. I don't look. Here's the thing, right? He really did do his best to like avoid like saying stuff that he's not supposed to. They just caught him off guard with their questioning, and yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes with good questioning, you are able to get some more information that than some people ought to put out there. uh, and he basically says, yeah, like he was basically told like, oh yeah, it's supposed to come out this time, and he was like, well, no, actually, I think it was supposed to come out around this time, and the supposed release month that he said is October. So we might see Alan Wake 2 coming out in October, which would make sense in terms of like, heading towards the holiday season. October usually is that period where a lot of the big tentpole titles tend to release, so that they can meet the holiday sales onward, of course. Who knows? Certainly, I don't know, but I guess we'll find out at Summer Game Fest. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Um, Speaking of sad, Nintendo is going to be shutting down Pac-Man 99. Now, if you don't know what Pac-Man 99 is, Pac-Man 99 is a game that was put out on the Nintendo Switch Online service. Uh, well, so yeah, there's a basically a quote unquote free to play version of this game where you and 99 other people play a game of Pac-Man and try to last as long as possible until there's only one Pac-Man standing. I've played it. It's a fun game. It's a fun little distraction. Of course, this was on the heels of Tetris 99 and Super Mario 99, which has already been delisted and ceased working a long time ago. And now it looks like Pac-Man 99 is the next one to um, face closure on October 8th. If you have bought the single player offline mode, you should be able to play that once the service is no more, but don't expect the online features to work after October 8th. Unfortunately, we did not have the same grace with Super Mario 99, or was it 35? Super Mario 35, sorry. Um, which is unfortunate because it would have been nice to at least have an offline version of that. But yeah, um, that's very sad. Tetris 99 still live and kicking. Um, but now the real worry becomes also, will that eventually face closure? I know for a fact that that also has an offline version and offline modes that you can buy separately. That does not come with the online service, which is kind of funny. So the offline modes you can buy separately. Those are not available to the online, but the online is free for basically anybody that has Nintendo Switch Online. Um, very a little bit complicated in that one, but yeah. Um, so basically, they have a whole structure of like by the time that it goes down by October 8th, it'll be gone. So starting August 8th, sorry, the option to buy custom themes will be removed from Pac-Man 99. From September 8th onward, the option to buy Pac-Man 99 Deluxe Pack or the Pac-Man 99 Mode Unlock DLC will be removed. And then finally, October 8th, the service will cease to exist. And that is sad. But I don't want to end on a sad note. No, no. I want to add on actually something of a good note. So, longtime listeners will probably remember back in the day when we first started Game Rivals, one of the big uh, articles that we talked about was the whole Riot Games uh, scandal where a lot of female employees were not being treated well and being harassed, and they weren't allowed to step forward about it or sue about it because of a clause, a very unfair clause in their contracts. It seems that that eventually did went to court, and for a very long time we didn't really hear a lot about it. But it seems like that has finally been resolved by the courts in favor of the plaintiffs, the ones that were suing Riot Games, and all the female employees. Hang on, let me get the article so that I make sure that I'm saying this correctly, because this is it's pretty big. It's pretty big, right? Um, there, I legit made sure that I had the article in front of me. Yeah, there. So yeah, Riot Games is to compensate 1,548 women in gender discrimination case. The settlement arrangement has been approved, with the court filing showing payments could range from $5,000 to over $150,000 for the workers. And you know what? That is pretty awesome. Um, that is a win for the women that worked at Riot and that received such harassment. Harassment is, of course, never good. Never good. Man, woman, doesn't matter. Um, any kind of harassment that you're doing, um, that is just that is just not good, right? Because everybody deserves to be treated with respect and with dignity, um, and just like like when it first came out, me and my former co-host Sean Templer, we talked about it and how this basically puts this kind of gives you a bad taste in your mouth, that like a company would allow something like this to happen under their nose and then basically try to sweep it under the rug. I know that Riot Games is not one of the first companies to have this happen to them. Activision Blizzard. Um, so yeah, at the very least, it is nice to see that people are getting what they're due, and at least that they've been proven in the right, and that they're getting the compensation that they deserve in terms of uh, getting their life back on track, and also, of course, making sure that um, they that their voices have been heard, um, and that the courts agree with it. So this is very good news for them, and I would like to congratulate them on this win. And I hope that moving forward, uh, Riot Games and other game studios, of course, out there, publishers and whatnot, follow the lead of being a good boss and making sure that if people are getting harassed, that they do their due diligence and make sure that it gets resolved in a nice and well and respected manner, and it doesn't have to come to stuff like court settlements and court rulings and stuff like that. Just do your due diligence, make sure that your employees are treated with the respect that they deserve, um, and yeah, um, again, kudos. So, with that said, I will put in a really quick break, and then when we come back, I'm going to be talking about Tears of the Kingdom some more and what I've been playing. So stick around, and I'll be right back. welcome back to the second segment, which is what I've been playing. And, well, as I hinted before, and I almost couldn't contain myself at the beginning of the episode, I've been playing some Breath of the Wild. Oh my gosh, I keep making that mistake, even during streams. Tears of the Kingdom. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It has been such a long road to finally get to the point where I can actually say, I've played Tears of the Kingdom, and I like it. And yeah, I do like it. I do have to make a quick caveat here. As of this recording, I have not finished it yet. I've been exploring Hyrule anew. Um and I will say that I'm probably in terms of story progression 50% there. 50%. 50 maybe 45% there. Depending on how long the story is. But yeah, I have been um, immersed in Hyrule, exploring the many sky islands, exploring Hyrule. I will say this: I will try to go in as spoiler free as I possibly can, so I won't talk about story stuff. Don't worry about that here. Most of the stuff that I will be talking about is gameplay related. So if you have, for some reason, skipped out on it or have tried to avoid as much spoilers as possible, I'll only talk about the stuff early on in the game and mostly just gameplay stuff. Um, Let me just start by saying I am not a war criminal. I have not tortured Koroks. Although I will just like give them a dirty look as I like walk past them when they ask for help. I'm like, no, I don't have time for you. There's something over there. I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is, but it's not helping you right now. So I just ignore the living crap out of the Koroks. I don't know if that's also a form of abuse, but I hope not. um, yeah, Breath of the Wild. My goodness, Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, sorry. I hope this is the last time I make that mistake. Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my gosh, I keep making that mistake, and I've heard other people making that mistake too. I mean, yes, it takes place in the same Hyrule. Um, it is a couple of years past since uh Link and Zelda are investigating something mysterious going on underneath Hyrule Castle. This is literally the beginning of the game. This is not spoilers. Um, and something goes awry. If you've seen the trailers, you might figure out what goes awry. And now it's up to Link and his newfound abilities to save Hyrule once again um, from imminent disaster uh, coming on. And I will say this: the beginning of the game is done really well. Um, Whereas the beginning of Breath of the Wild had this really like very quiet moment of like introducing the character to the world. And this one, it assumes that you already know the characters, you know, Zelda and Link, of course, and of course you're playing as Link, as Zelda's bodyguard. And yeah, some things happen, some bad things happen, and Link wakes up on a sky island. He wakes up somewhere in the sky. Oh, that's very mysterious, isn't it? So you make your way through this big sky island ring, and you eventually get down back to Hyrule, and that's when the game truly opens up. But the first couple of hours on the Sky Islands is it's very magical. It's very different. It's if you've played Breath of the Wild, it's the equivalent of being on the Great Plateau and essentially learning how the game plays and like the game mechanics, at least the base stuff that you're going to be spending a majority of the time using, of course, your new abilities. Instead of the Sheikah slate with the runes, you now have abilities as recall, uh, ultra hand, fuse, and what am I missing? Ultra Hand, Fuse, and uh, Ascend. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot Ascend. Ascend is so great, but I'll get into it further. Um, so on the islands, you find these abilities that allow you to traverse the world better, that allow you to fight better, because one of the abilities, Fuse, allows you to fuse items to your weapon or to your shield to strengthen or add new abilities to said weapons. So let's say, for example, you find a tree branch. Tree branches are weak weapons and they break easily. But what if you attach a rock to it and suddenly you have a rock hammer, which allows you to break ores and also the living smack out of the constructs, which are these automaton creatures that live on the Sky Islands. They also teach you uh, things about the world and how to traverse in the world and how to cook and how to fight and how to chop down trees and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool way of introducing you to the world and introducing you to the mechanics. And it's very well done. I mean, it's very familiar, but just because it's a familiar doesn't mean that it is at all a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And by the time that you leave the Great Island, the Great Sky Island, and you come back down to Hyrule, you might be thinking, oh, I know this place. I know this place. This is Hyrule. This is not new. And it only takes a couple of minutes of walking through Hyrule to be like, oh wait, no, Hyrule does look a bit different. There's an air of time has passed. Hyrule has changed, even if it's in subtle ways, but in some ways more dramatic. And that is very beautiful to see. It is nice to see these changes to Hyrule, a Hyrule that was once almost completely desolate, except for some few human settlements here and there, uh, uh, some few Hylian settlements here and there. I mean, so like the Goron CD and like the Zora domain, and of course Gerudo Town, of course, are still there, but they've all changed. There's life on the plains now. There's life near the castle. There's life everywhere. There's also enemies everywhere. There are way more enemies in the overworld than there have been in Breath of the Wild. So it gives it a way more lived in feeling, but it also gives it a more, uh, you feel more wary about your surroundings. In Breath of the Wild, you didn't feel always like you're in danger unless you faced off against a very dangerous group of enemies or a very dangerous enemy like a Lionel or a Stone Talus or a Hinox that you would run into. I mean, those are still there, but there are more enemy types around. Like I already talked about, the constructs are one of them. They added more. They added more enemies that have some interesting, unique ways of defeating them. Um, the way you fight is still largely the same, but with the new ability to fuse items to your weapons, not just your sword or lance or club or your shield, but also to your arrows. So now you don't have magic arrows anymore. You can just fuse any old thing that is in your inventory, with some exceptions, to your arrow and fire away. So, for example, you have these monster drops called Key's Eyes, which, when fused to an arrow, adds a homing functionality to it. If you attach Key's wings, it allows a arrow to travel in a straight line, but also farther than usual. So if you want to like snipe an enemy from pretty far, you'll just attach these wings and send it flying. You can also attach bombs, of course, to your arrows so that you have bomb arrows. You can do really cool things with a lot of different items. Like, for example, there's this new fruit that you can pick up that once you attach it to an arrow and you fire it off against an enemy, it'll explode like a flashbang, and enemies will be temporarily blinded. The fun thing about it also is that you don't need an arrow to set these things off. For example, the key's eyes that I talked about earlier, you don't have to just attach them to an arrow. You can just throw them from your hand and it'll still have the homing ability, which is really cool. So if you want to throw, like, for example, ice bombs or frost bombs, you have these new fruits in the world called ice fruit. Very urgent there. Once you throw them, they explode into uh, basically uh, like a freeze bomb, and it will freeze whatever comes into contact with it, including enemies, which is a great way to freeze an enemy that you're afraid of and then run away as fast as you can, which I have been doing. I noticed much later in my playthrough that with the abilities that you've been added, especially the fuse ability, but also the ability to throw items, that I've been playing more Rambo style, as I like to go call it. Um, and it's basically a fusion of Rambo and MacGyver because by fusing stuff together, you're basically like MacGyver trying to figure out the best way to attack an enemy. But by being able to throw items from your hand directly, I kind of feel like Rambo and I go complete ham. So even when I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm running out of like weapons to use, I can always grab something that is in my inventory as long as I have enough of them and start chucking them at enemies to make sure that I can either slow them down, do additional damage, give them a status effect temporarily, like for example, throwing a yellow choo choo drop against an enemy, which shocks them, which makes them drop their items so that I can pick up their weapons for myself and then beat the living crap out of them. There have been so many cool things that I've done that I've been able to do so far, and all of that without any loading times. Yes, the game runs at 900p. Yes, there are still stutters in Kakariko Village, just like in Breath of the Wild. Well, not stutters, I mean slowdown of the frame rate. And yes, even the Ultra Hand will occasionally make the frame rate dip, but the game has never crashed on me. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that the game has crashed on them. A very interesting thing that has happened to me twice is, so you have, like I said, you have the surface world, Hyrule, you have the sky world, which is the Sky Island, but you also now have the depths, which is the underground of Hyrule. Also, very much so, is basically the whole of Hyrule that is available to you, but underground. Now, a unique thing about the depth is, well, as the name say, they are quite deep, and there's no sunlight coming there. So you need these special items called bloom seeds. I want to say bloom seeds, bright seeds, bloom seeds, and you toss these seeds and then they sprout into light giving flowers that light your way in the depth, which is really cool. Of course, you can attach them to arrows and shoot them off that way, but to preserve arrows, in considering that you really do need arrows for a lot of the combat, well, you don't need it, but it is very convenient because you get to attach stuff to the arrows. Of course, like I said, it's way more convenient to just throw them from Link's hand, even if they don't travel as far. The point is, of course, to light your way through the darkness. Of course, you could do that with fire, but fire eventually, burns out. But these flowers, they don't burn out. They Once you've planted them, they are in bloom, and you don't have to worry about it. You do have these things called light roots, which are essentially the underground version of the towers, and yeah, they allow you to fast travel to the light routes, but the light routes also light up the area around them so that it's less dark in the area, and it reveals the map to you once you have activated a light route. Now, like I said before, the towers are back, but this time there are more of them, and they actually serve as a secondary purpose. They allow you to shoot yourself up into the sky so that you can reach Sky Islands or reach other destinations quicker than just traversing over the ground, which is really handy because you can just paraglide to where you want to be or get closer to where you want to be without the hassle of like walking or running or using a horse to get to where you need to be if it's a place that you haven't discovered yet. And like I said before, it shoots you high up in the sky, so it also allows you to gain access to certain sky islands that way. Another thing that they added is the Zonai devices. Now these things are like different kind of devices. There's plenty of them to go around. Not to spoil too many of them, just the stuff that you've seen already in like the trailers. You have wheels. You have a steering mechanism. You have a fan. You have rockets. You have weapons like a flamethrower and a cannon that you can also fuse to your weapons to make a cannon stick that fires cannons whenever you swing the stick, or attach it to your shield, and now you have a shield that fires cannon shots, or a flamethrower that fires flames, and a whole bunch of other devices that I don't want to get into. But these also help you traverse the overworld, the depth, and of course, the sky. And the whole point, of course, is to be as creative as you can be with all these devices. There are no wrong answers in how to use these devices. And of course, you use the Ultra Hand to stick them to other stuff, to stick them to each other, and make new devices out of them. A lot of people have been making some really cool things, like I've said before. People have been making Fortresses of Doom. People have been making amazing looking trucks. Yes, that's what I said, trucks, honest to goodness mechs, flying machines, and everything in between. And also penises. Yeah, that again, once you give people the creative freedom, the first thing they will do is make some weird stuff. And of course, like I said before, torturing Koroks in very concerning ways that make you doubt or question humanity. And again, I have not partaken in these things because I am not a sociopath. Okay, I'm not saying that the people that do it are sociopaths. I understand the correct torture. They are annoying little buggers. I still wouldn't torture them though. Maybe just one. No, no, no. I wouldn't. No, 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 no. No, I don't want. No, 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 no. But yeah. Just my time in Tears of the Kingdom so far. I am planning on beating the game on stream, so hopefully, uh, if you're able to, if you've heard this, you might be able to check it out. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Maximilian underscore X. Link in the podcast description, of course. And and yeah, it's been such a ride. It's been so amazing to like discover things and finding things out and seeing what other people are doing. Like one of the things that I recently found out was someone made this like a couple of like a week ago. Someone made this glider that's kind of like the Goblin glider from Spider-Man, from like the Green Goblin. It controlled pretty unruly in my opinion. I was not a big fan. Um, there are, I mean, it uses fans so that you can fly around. It's a very simple device where you attach two like fans to like a control mechanism, and that allowed you to have like a simple flying machine. But then someone had the brilliant idea of changing the orientation of the fans, and that allows you to have a air cycle instead of like a glider, which has way better controls. So instead of putting the fans next to each other, you put them one in the front, one in the back, slightly at an angle, so that you have nice takeoff, nice control, and great stability in the air. And it allows you to traverse great distances over a relatively short time. And as long as you have enough battery power, it'll take you as far as you need to. And it's so great. I'm definitely gonna be looking up some tutorials on how to make mechs. I've kind of gotten the idea of how people have been making mechs. I just need some more. I just need a little bit more direction in that regard. I've been trying to make some crazy machines for myself. I've been trying to make some crazy weapon combinations. Um, like making magic wands. Uh, Also, a thing that I did and then later found out that it's actually a viable thing. I accidentally put like a weapon on a shield, and I was like, I need this shield to be strengthened. And then I attached a weapon. And I was like, it's fine, whatever. And then literally that same day, I found an article talking about how you can dual wield. Actually, not an article; it's a video from Game Explain that you can dual wield in Legend of Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom, and it was literally just attaching a long weapon to a shield and then using the parry button when you have your shield up to like swing that weapon that's attached to the shield. And it works. I tried it out and was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of this before? That actually makes sense. So you can technically kind of sort of dual wield in Tears of the Kingdom if you attach a long weapon to a shield. Do do be careful. Fused weapons do not attach to shields because once it's fused, you cannot fuse it to another item. So you can't infinitely fuse items to weapons or items to arrows. So do keep that in mind. If you switch from one item to another, for example, with arrows, it'll switch item. It won't stack the item on the arrows. So yeah, I've done two temples so far. Again, this is not spoilerific because we know the temples are in the game. We've seen them in the trailers. I've done two temples so far, and I've been having a blast, just a blast. Hopefully, by the time that you're listening to this, I should have done the third temple. Depending on how long it is, I think I averaged like about 3 hours per temple, and I've spent the first weekend I spent over 50 hours. There's the kingdom. We're like a week and a half further. I'm pretty sure I've probably breached over 100, if not 200 hours by now. just just exploring Hyrule. It's so good, and the depth and the sky islands, and there's so many cool puzzles. It's so much fun. Um, I know that there are those that don't really dig the Breath of the Wild style of Legend of Zelda, and you know what? That's fine. It's okay. Like there's still 2D Zeldas out there that you can play. Don't worry about it. But we do know that like this way of making Zelda games might be the future for the mainline series. Maybe they'll do some like side games that are still 2D, top down, but in terms of like mainline series, this might be the future going forward. So yeah, it's been super great. The other thing that I've been playing, of course, that I talked about a little bit during the news segment is Street Fighter 6. The demo came out a couple of weeks ago. I think I talked about it in the last episode of Game Rivals a little bit. But also, they had the open beta over the past weekend of May 19th to May 21st. I want to say. And yeah, I partook of that a little bit. Played in some tournaments, lost, like I said. But like yeah, like I said, the control scheme of like playing with classic controls with basically like you manually inputting commands and timing them so that you can make combos that still exists, obviously. But then you have the modern controls, which is what I've been playing. But they also have a third control mode called dynamic, which is something in between classic and modern. I haven't tried it out yet, but the idea is that you can essentially play however you want, and the controls dynamically adapt to how you're playing. So if you're playing in the style of modern, it should allow you to play with modern controls. And if you want to do like a quarter circle back and stuff like that, it should also recognize that and do that as well. Haven't been able to try it because neither the demo or the open beta allowed you to use, I think, those schemes. Um, Yeah, playing against the CPU is crazy. Um, like the if you've seen the videos of like pro gamers, pro Street Fighter players playing against the level 8 CPU and getting their ass totally handed to them, yeah, level 8 CPU is an actual beast. It does not take any prisoners. It'll come at you with the full force. So if you're a casual, just stick to like I don't know level 4 or something, which is like the which seems to like to be the base level, and you'll have a good time. And it'll also help you to like get used to making combos if you want to learn to do that. The practice mode is actually pretty good in that. Um, it allows you to like play in classic mode or modern controls, and modern controls is just so good. Um, my best friend was comparing it to the control scheme of like Super Smash Brothers, and it kind of makes sense because you have a special button, which is just the top button. You have one button for low attacks, one button for medium attacks, one button for high attacks. You have a modifier trigger, which allows you to chain combos automatically. You can also make your own combos by you know timing your button presses correctly with the correct with the correct combination, and it's easy to get into. It is also very easy to get very button mashy in it, but that'll not win you any battles. But there are tutorials out there that allow you to understand the way combos work, and so that you can focus on actually making good combos, even with modern controls, and actually play the game as you want. That level of like player freedom has not been felt in a fighting game since Smash, and yeah, I feel like this is a very good step in the a very good step for a Street Fighter, and I hope more fighting games adopt this way of playing, allowing for classic controls but also modern simplified controls, but still allow you to grow and be better in the game instead of just button mashing and hoping for the best. um yeah, it's such a it's been so fun playing Street Fighter 6 so far. Even with just the demo and the open beta, and it's coming out June 2nd, so it is around the corner. And of course, Evo is a couple of months after that, so you get to see pro players playing Street Fighter 6, and it's always fun to watch Evo and watching pro gamers, pro Street Fighter players play the game, because then you get to see some amazing fights, some amazing combos, amazing strategies, and just the excitement that surrounds something like a fighting game tournament is still, to me, one of those special things that cannot be replicated or replaced. So I'm looking forward to that. Will I be picking up Street Fighter 6? Probably. Probably, most likely. Again, I don't have a PlayStation 5, so I won't be able to get it there. I'll have to get it on my Xbox Series S, which makes it a bit more of a challenge because I can't get it on a disc, because there's no disc reader in like a Series S, so I'd have to get it digitally. So those are things to consider when you have like a non-disc based system. But yeah, I might actually get it because I really did enjoy the demo, and I really did enjoy the open beta. Like I said, I partake in some tournaments, and yeah, I got my ass beat. I did pretty okay for myself. Um, I actually like won a round here and there, but never got past like the first because it's like best of three. Um, and I'd win one and then like lose the rest, and I got so close to getting to the next round, y'all. People, uh, it's sad. It's sad. It's okay though. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, that has been Street Fighter 6. Um, check it out if you're interested. If you are into fighting games or if you're curious about fighting games, I recommend checking out some previews and checking the reviews once it hits the once the game comes out June 2nd. So, with that said, we have come to the end of another episode of Game Rivals. Thank you so much for listening. If you've come this far, I appreciate you. You are amazing. You are awesome. You are a fellow rival. Thank you. Um, as always, you can find this podcast on your favorite podcasting service. Our home on Spotify, but you can also find us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast. You name it, we're probably there. We're also on YouTube. I'm hoping to bring the podcast to back to the YouTube channel soon, sooner rather than later. Um, it's mostly been just me and that always makes me a bit nervous. But yeah, uh, you can also if you have any feedback, of course, you can send feedback to gamerivalsfeedback at gmail.com. You can also reach me on Twitter, oof, at Maximilian. You can also find Game Rivals on Twitter, which is at game underscore rivals underscore. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/ at game rivals, or youtube.com/ at Maximilian underscore X. That is for my personal YouTube channel. Like I said, you can find my unboxing video for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Collector's Edition there. It is a really good one. I hope you check it out. You can also find me on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/ Maximilian underscore X. All these will be in the description of this week's podcast episode, as always. And with that said, thank you so much for listening once again. Please don't forget to give us a five-star review on Apple Podcasts. And I have been and always will be Maximilian X. And I'll see you all of you beautiful rivals next time. Later.